This is CBC Here and Now.
It would appear that the vast majority of them are in the under 20 age group.
The COVID-19 cluster on the Burin Peninsula more than doubles over the weekend.
Teaching moves online for 2 schools caught up in the outbreak.
Well, after a warm and wet weekend, it looks like the cooler temperatures are going to stick around for the week.
I was unhappy and I was very discouraged, and I thought it's like any kind of relationship. If you stay where you're not happy, eventually things started to erode.
A Tory no more. A Labrador progressive conservative MHA leaves the party.
Leila Evans tells us why she'll sit as an independent.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Peter Cowan. The cluster of cases on the Burin Peninsula continues to grow. In fact, all but 3 of the cases over the weekend were tied to the outbreak there. Over the last 4 days, there have been 36 new cases, and 33 of them are tied to that cluster on the Burin. It continues to be young people, with 23 of the cases being people under the age of 20. Both Sacred Heart Academy and Donald C. Jameson Academy have closed to in-person classes because of these cases. These are younger students who can't get vaccinated.
One of the challenges is a lot of them are in that very young age group who cohort. Cohorting isn't easy, and mask wearing hasn't been mandatory. So again, it's really an unvaccinated population, but they don't as yet have a vaccine available for them.
Despite this cluster, Public Health didn't release COVID numbers over the weekend. It was up to the Mayor of Marystown to release daily numbers on Facebook. The Health Minister defended that decision, saying outbreaks like this one are now to be expected.
Well, I think the decision from our point of view about a release was, quite frankly, this is now COVID business as normal. You're going to see this, and we saw this as the central clusters evolved and kind of took shape over a period of a couple of weeks. I honestly, our advice is that you're likely to see this now on and off until we're able to complete a vaccine rollout for the 5 to 11-year-olds.
Well, today the province said there's just 1 person in hospital with COVID-19. That's now the lowest figure in a month. Meanwhile, the health minister explained today why Janeway Children's Hospital staff are prepared to send some young patients to Nova Scotia. In a memo, hospital staff were warned to send critically ill pediatric patients to the IWK Children's Hospital in Halifax to be admitted. The memo says there's a staffing shortage. Today, Haggie explained what happened.
What happened on Thursday is 5 out of the 6 beds on the PICU were full. Eastern Health reached out to IWK for a contingency plan in case that 6th bed was full and the 7th patient came in, and IWK agreed to take patients if needed. No one was sent anywhere. It is, my recollection, however, is that it has happened once before under similar circumstances, and again, no one was sent out. Under normal circumstances, that's a 6-bedded unit that runs with an average of 3 patients.
There are new details tonight on a homicide investigation in St. John's. It's been 5 months since the discovery of a body on a trail in Waterford Valley, and now court filings reveal the RNC has a suspect. Here Now's Ariana Kellen has this report.
On May 30th, a gruesome discovery was made on this wooded trail. 68-year-old Mike King found dead at the scene. Court documents obtained by CBC News reveal key pieces of evidence were found nearby. An RNC constable has filed an application asking a judge to allow investigators to hold on to 5 pieces of evidence a little longer. He says the items may be of forensic value. These pieces of evidence haven't been able to be analyzed. That's due to a COVID-related backlog at the National Crime Lab. Police say all of these items belong to a 26-year-old man, their suspect in this case, a fact that has never been made public. One piece of evidence has already been sent to the lab, but could take months for results. A judge will consider the RNC's application to keep the evidence at the end of the month. And while there is a suspect, no charges have been laid yet. The RNC would not comment on the upcoming court application or provide new details on the homicide investigation. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, those temperatures really messed up everybody's that have acclimatized to some of those cooler temperatures that we've been seeing. Much different story today. 10 degrees in St. John's as you head towards Central and the West Coast. Those temperatures were in the single digits, and same thing up across Labrador. Single digit temperatures, 2 degrees today in Makkovik, and you look at the temperature change anywhere from 9 to 12 degrees for eastern areas of the island. So certainly a much cooler air mass in play right now. That area of low pressure, though, why we saw those strong winds moving offshore, and those winds are going to start to ease as we head through the evening hours tonight. But we do have our next weather maker that is going to skirt south of the province, in fact, over the next couple of days, already over Ontario. And if we take a look at what's going to happen, this is the pattern for the week. We've got that ridge of high pressure that's going to move in over Labrador, dominate the weather, and that's going to keep that low pressure system at bay, it looks like, for most of the week. In fact, keeping that high pressure pretty much over the province. I'll tell you what that means when I come back.
Thanks, Asha. Making good on a campaign promise. Today, the Premier announced that schools in the province will be stocked with menstrual products for students in grade 4 and above. The government will install dispensers of free supplies in school bathrooms in an effort to combat what the Premier calls period poverty.
And I'm happy to announce that school bathrooms in this province today will now be stocked with pads and tampons. That means students will be able to discreetly, without embarrassment, access the products they need.
This is going to be a great solution just for equity and to empower all students so that they feel comfortable and safe in an inclusive school is what we all strive for.
I think the other important thing is that, when you ask about, vandalism and things like that, this is part of normalizing. Making this a part of conversation, making this a normal thing. This has always been something that's been taboo. People haven't wanted to talk about it. I think the reason why it hasn't come forward earlier is because it hasn't really been talked about. It's probably been an issue for 60, 70 years, but nobody's ever really talked about it. And this government's taken it upon himself to say, you know what, this time for us to provide equitable access to all these people in the province, that this is part of a normal function. And I think in a few years from now, you'll just see it in every bathroom, in every school, and my hope is that eventually we'll see this in every public washroom everywhere.
So before coming here today, I certainly made an effort to check out the prices of the products in a store. A package of pads or tampons range from $7 to $12 before taxes. And so given this monthly cost, it's no wonder there is that phrase coined, for lack of access to the sanitary products and menstrual hygiene education, as the Premier said, period poverty.
The thing for us is we want all our students to meet success both in learning and outside of the classroom, and to create an environment where all students feel safe and empowered, where we normalise equity is where we want to go.
The MHA for the District of Torngat Mountains in Labrador is leaving the Progressive Conservative Party. Leila Evans will sit as an independent in the House of Assembly. Here now's Mark Quinn explains why.
Leila Evans says last night was the first good sleep she's had in a long time, and today she believes she can see more clearly. She's told the PC party she's leaving, and this afternoon she walked into the House as an independent.
I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff. And, there's updraft, and I'm really careful not to get blown off the side of the cliff. But also, up here is a good, clear view. And my conscience is at ease.
Evans says she's unhappy with the PC party. She said it's not doing enough to help the people of Labrador.
My party has heard me say that, and I expect support. I expect something to be done to help change this, and I'm not getting it. So I actually have to remove myself, and I have to actually stand and try to educate the population. And I'm hoping that people are going to support me. I hope, in the spirit of true reconciliation, that the people are going to actually support me.
For his part, the current leader of the PC said he had no indication that Evans' decision was coming. He found out this morning.
Just before 10 o'clock, I was a bit shocked, and and I keep using the word disappointed because I was. I thought and understood we had a great working relationship. The 2 elections that she's been involved in, we're the ones who talked about medical transportation for Labrador. We talked about food security for the coastal areas. We've talked about a road to the north in Labrador. So we've outlined all the Pacific issues that we've heard from the coastal areas and from the other areas of Labrador.
Alison Coffin, has become a friend to me.
Evans said she believes the NDP plays an important role and she supports it, but she also said she intends to remain an independent MHA. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Results are in from the recent Qalipu First Nation Mi'kmaq band election for a new chief and council. A record number of members voted this time. More than 8,000 voted by phone or online over a week-long period. That's the largest turnout to date. Qalipu First Nation has just over 20,000 eligible voters. Campaign signs covered intersections in communities on the west coast and central parts of the province for weeks now. Many candidates were aiming for the top spot. With 3,177 votes, Chief Brendan Mitchell was re-elected. This will be his third term as chief. Andrew Barker has been acclaimed as vice chief for the central region. And Jenny Brake is the western vice chief with Qalipu First Nation with 5,311 votes. 8 wards councillors were also elected. They will officially be sworn in a month from now. A mom in St. John's is pushing for change after her son's former daycare lost its license. Natasha Hunt says what happened to her son was scary and that loopholes in the province's childcare system mean that something similar could happen again. Lindsay Bird has been looking into the story and she joins me now from Corner Brook. So Lindsay, what does Natasha Hunt say happened at this daycare?
So Anthony, Natasha Hunt enrolled her son at Little Owl Land, a daycare in St. John's, in March 2020. Now, Little Owl Land was a regulated day home in the city. That's a home-based daycare that's subject to provincial legislation and rules similar to how a daycare center is. And Natasha Hunt said this whole experience was fine until this past spring. She says there was a conflict with the daycare provider over potty training. The two parted ways. Hunt still wasn't happy, so she went to the agency that oversees regulated day homes to complain. That agency is called Family and Childcare Connections. And when she did that, she says they told her there was no record of her or her son registered at that daycare at all. And part of being a registered day home means there are regular visits from an agency worker to check up on things. And Hunt says on at least 5 of those visits, they happened when the same day that her son was at the daycare, and she has the text to prove it. But she also has a letter from the Family and Childcare Connections agency, and it states the home visitor never met nor saw Hunt's son during those visits. All of this just makes her wonder, where was he? Here's Natasha Hunt explaining a little more.
Oh my gosh, just, complete and utter shock. That first realization when all those alarms went off and wondering where he was, it's just like just went to the pit of my stomach. It was awful and horrible. And I know that, a lot of people are facing challenges with childcare and are just trying to find somewhere. So, we had somewhere, we thought it was a really great place.
So Lindsay, what does the daycare have to say?
Well, I spoke to Little Owl Land's operator, Zoya Amirmafi, about this. She didn't want to do an interview with CBC, but she did confirm she never registered Hunt's son. She says it all happened the same time as COVID-19 hit, and that contributed to never sending the paperwork in. But she does refute Hunt's allegations about the home visits. She says all of the in-person agency visits happened on days when Hunt's son wasn't at the daycare. Now, Amirmafi's daycare license has been revoked. It was revoked in June. And she says the reason was for having 1 more child than allowed. So 7 kids instead of 6.
Okay, well, Little Owl Land was regulated, Lindsay. So what do the authorities that oversee daycares have to say about this?
Well, Family and Childcare Connections, they wouldn't comment, saying this has all been turned over to the provincial government for an investigation. The Department of Education handled that investigation, and I did speak to Education Minister Tom Osborne. He called this, quote, a significant violation. And he says his department is now working with Family and Childcare Connections on all their policies, particularly around home inspections and having some more training around there.
So, Lindsay, does this satisfy Natasha Hunt at all?
Not really. The whole thing to her highlights some shortcomings within the childcare system in the province that she says are pretty easy fixes. For one, she wants the registration process changed so there can't be any discrepancies in the number of children that are registered at a daycare or not. And she also wants violations around day homes public. Now, right now, daycare center violations, those are made public. They go up on a government website and you can check them out. But for day homes, that doesn't happen.
We all know childcare is very hard to come by right now, especially for infants. Any parent will tell you that. So having this information out there readily available for people to be informed and to just help make those decisions a little bit easier would, I think, be a huge help to parents who are already worried and stressed with the overall childcare situation.
Now, Minister Osborne did say there's a bunch of privacy concerns about making day home violations public, but there will be changes to the childcare system that come out of this experience. But Hunt says she's been told to voice her concerns and see those changes made when the next legislative review of the childcare system happens. And she's been told that's years away, and she wants to see changes made now.
All right, a story of interest to a lot of people. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Anthony.
That's the CBC's Lindsay Bird in Corner Brook.
Memorial University's Black Student Association held an event at the St. John's Farmers Market yesterday to showcase Black-owned businesses. Organizers say it was the first of its kind in the province. Several business owners and entrepreneurs came out to sell and showcase their work.
Today is focused specifically on Black entrepreneurs. Black entrepreneurs, especially in St. John's, face a higher barrier to entry when it comes to connecting with the society and also getting a lot of exposure to the community. The vendors are so excited and happy to be here, and the support from the community has been more than I could ever have asked for. We've had a lot of shares from the City of St. John's, companies, CFSNL. The support has been very overwhelming, and I'm very appreciative of that.
I mean, this is the first time we're having this type of event ever, like a actual black, vendor kind of event. And I felt like it's something that the province needs, even if it's just once in a while, because I mean, there's other markets, but I wanted to also come out here to support being black.
I think it brings more exposure to artists, especially black artists. I'm from Sudan myself, so it's I bring a bit of both, from a bit of Canadian and a bit of from Sudan.
It gives us the opportunity to shine. It gives us the opportunity to actually show other people what we're made of and who we are. We don't get the opportunity that much to really show that.
Entrepreneurship and the entire way of it's really a way of freedom. It's a way to show our resilience as black people, as people of color. We have something, we have value, and we want to bring it to St. John's to just have our work valued on the same level of black to everybody else. It's a challenge, and it's something that we're fighting to break out of.
I'm in Radio Studio A, where the magic of radio happens. And Adam Walsh, who you've seen on Here and Now many times, got a new job officially. You're the new host of Crosstalk. Congratulations. So, can't do that.
Can we do this? Is this how it works now?
How you feeling?
Great, Anthony. It's really exciting, I've been in this position since Ramona retired. I started in June, late June, and kind of got used to it, started to feel around, and I'm trying to change the show into a virtual town square where everyone can call in, but also I'll be going to people, sometimes going to communities, going out to speak to people individually. So the show is going to be the same at its base, but there will be some changes coming, and I'm really looking forward to explore those with the listeners.
Okay, so the call-in obviously is still a critical part, but not the only part?
That's right. There will be call-ins, so folks, gardening is not going to go anywhere. Like the staples, the things that people love will stay, but then we're going to try to explore, because we need the show to represent 2021 and the years to come. And it's something that I think if we do explore and we look around, there can be a lot of fun that can be had in radio, and it's just to create something where everyone feels welcome, that they can call in and tell their stories, and just kind of tell us what's on the go across this great province.
Okay, and what are you enjoying about, transitioning from a reporter, now you're officially going to be a host? Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
What are you looking forward to?
Well, host producer Anthony. So in this case, I've got a lot of say of what goes on the show, and then I sit down and I talk to people throughout the show. So I'm looking forward to working those programming muscles, right? Not just kind of pitching a story. It's like, let's see how we can continue a conversation over weeks and months. And that is super interesting and exciting for me.
Okay, it'll be fun to listen. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, sir.
Adam Walsh, new host of Crosstalk.
Much different story out there today. Cooler temperatures, unfortunately, they're going to stick around, but the weather's going to be fairly quiet. I'll try to get into some of those details when I come back.
before we get to the weather, Ashley, we have a little bit of a video to share.
Yes, someone thought that there was a trickster in Labrador City, a pumpkin bandit, who was making off with people's Halloween displays.
Well, a doorbell cam caught the culprit, so let's take a look.
Turns out it was Barry, the big, fluffy, white dog. How adorable is this? It's Barry's first Halloween, and he can't help himself. He just loves playing with pumpkins.
So yeah, he creeped up onto the neighbor's porch and pawing away at the pumpkins. So Barry's people actually learned about this through Facebook. They didn't know he'd gotten out. They say he loves pulling up potatoes from the garden as well. So they weren't all that surprised that he decided he wanted to make off with a pumpkin and play with it as well. So still very much a puppy.
Yeah, there he goes. He's happy.
The pumpkin bandit has been caught.
That's
and all
amazing.
is well with the world in Labrador City.
So funny what goes through their little minds.
Yeah, it was, let's talk about the weekend, because it was a pretty rainy weekend, although I didn't hear a lot of people complaining because it was warm.
Yeah,
this was kind of the fall that you're like, okay, I can handle the rain if it's also like 17 degrees.
Sure can. Yeah, and then a few claps of thunder as well on parts of the Avalon.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed Sunday morning, a nice thunderstorm. We don't get a lot in Newfoundland, so when we do get them, I enjoy them. What can I say?
Exactly. The other thing, lots of rain on top of that as well. Let's take a look at some of those numbers across the province. Mainly the west and south coast. That's where we saw the majority of the rain. 70 millimeters, actually nearly 71 millimeters in Stephenville. Similar numbers, well, actually a little less than that, 30 to 40 millimeters pretty much for the rest of the western half of the island. Corner Brook, 35.6 millimeters, and then St. Anthony, you recorded about 21.4, and that was over the weekend. So after those warm temperatures, much different story today. We're down now outside, sitting in the low single digits, 4 degrees in St. John's, 2 in Lassie, same thing for Makovic, and that temperature in Port aux Basques right now hovering around 7 degrees. Churchill Falls, you're hovering around 0. Now we saw some reports of some snow even in the mix. In fact, Gander actually did report a rain-snow mix, first time this year. So certainly things are changing, and we're going to see that potential. You can't really see it on the radar, but some of the showers are showing up on the radar. They're very light at this point. In fact, just seeing some drizzle as well. But that risk of some of the snow in the mix is certainly possible tonight through Central, as we see these temperatures in this northwest flow fairly cool overnight tonight. So things will stay generally cloudy. Some clearing skies up through parts of Labrador, maybe even the northern peninsula, seeing some of those clearing skies. But overall, it will be an unsettled evening with that chance of showers and or flurries sticking around for the most part. Those winds are going to ease as well, about 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. Pretty much across the board. Up across northern portions and coastal areas of Labrador, you're going to see your winds gusting upwards of about 40 kilometers per hour. But overall, temperatures will be cool. -2 in Lab City tonight. And then as far as the island goes, most areas into the low single digits. Low-lying areas will likely dip near or just below 0. Grand Falls, Windsor, I have you in for about -1 tonight. Now tomorrow, not a whole lot happening either. It's we're going to see a ridge of high pressure that's over Labrador kind of dominate the weather, and for the first half we'll likely see a few showers to start, but the western half of the island should actually clear out as we head through the day tomorrow. Staying pretty cloudy though in that northwest flow, pretty much from Bonavista north through to eastern areas of the island through the day, and coastal areas of Labrador as well, staying unsettled. Chance of flurries and or showers just skirting the coast as we head through the day tomorrow, and then we'll see some more cloud cover move in as we get into Wednesday. So temperatures tomorrow going to stay cool again. This is really the story as we head through the week this week. Northwesterly winds about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. The shower activity that I have in here should just be the morning. Most of the afternoon should stay cloudy, and then same thing as you head towards Central. Don't be surprised though if you see a few flakes in the morning. in the mix there. Down along south coast, you're looking at a temperature in and around 8 degrees for Harbour Breton. Same thing as you head towards the west coast, except Burgeo, Port Basque, you look like you might crack the double digits tomorrow. About 10 degrees will be your afternoon high. And then again, there's that chance of some flurries. That chance of flurries will only be in the morning, and then we should actually just see either showers or cloudy skies through the afternoon. Some clearing possible along the Strait and the northern peninsula as well. 6 degrees for St. Anthony. Similar temperatures rather for parts of Labrador. Your winds are actually going to ramp up tomorrow. You're looking at northwesterlies about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, but that potential for showers and or flurries will continue for the majority of the day. The further west you go, the nicer the weather as far as sunshine goes. However, those temperatures are going to stay cool. About 5 degrees in Lab City tomorrow. Churchill Falls looks like you'll top out at about 3 degrees. So as we head through the week, not a whole lot happening weather-wise, but there is an area of low pressure to the south that will affect mainly the maritime provinces. It's going to be a fairly strong system, but that ridge of high pressure that I was talking about looks like it's going to keep it at bay for most of the week, and I'll get into those details when I come back in a little bit.
Thanks, Ashley. The East Coast Trail Association reached a major fundraising goal this weekend, more than $52,000. The Trailraiser community hike usually raises money for regular trail maintenance, but the money will be going towards a bit of a different cause this year. Hurricane Larry caused enough damage to the trail that much of that money is going to be needed for repairs.
Trailraiser community hike is a staple of the East Coast Trail Association and our fundraising efforts. So it's been a 6-week campaign that all of our members and volunteers have really dedicated some time to get out and obviously enjoy the trail and enjoy the hiking, but to also raise some funds for the trail and some of our critical activities, especially with the impact of Hurricane Larry a few weeks ago. It's been a huge impact to try to clean up the trail and remove over 2,500 fallen trees across the entire 330 kilometers of the trail.
We saw a few downed trees, but these ones are pretty well maintained, but I'm sure the ones closer to Cappahayden would have had a lot of damage from the hurricane for sure.
Yeah, well, and the East Coast Trail is doing a good job of removing those pretty speedy. But I mean, the funds raised today are going to expedite that process tenfold.
The funds raised here, my understanding is they need the paid maintenance crew to go in and clear up all the blowdowns from Hurricane Larry. There was an incredible number of trees down over the path. And so those not only have to be cut up, they also have to be taken away. And so there's lots of work there to be done for sure.
Well, Hurricane Larry definitely had a lot of trees down, and even Dan talked about a lot of trees, and we were at Cobbler's Path the other day too. There's still some trees along the path that couldn't be crossed, and we have to either crawl underneath or go over it. And there are lots of trails to be done, and fundraising is so important that everyone should contribute.
It is a really good idea to get the flu shot, because if it does happen to be a bad flu year, then you are more protected.
Why medical experts say it's also important to get a flu shot this year to prevent a twin-demic. That's next.
Most of the talk for the past 2 years has been about COVID-19, but experts are warning you should also be thinking about the flu.
Yeah, here now's Mark Quinn sat down with a professor in the Department of Biochemistry at Memorial University to talk about why the experts want you to get the flu shot.
So it's that time of year again when people are thinking about flu shots. And this year, of course, is different because we've been dealing with COVID. And people are wondering, because of physical distancing and masking, there is less flu around the last couple of years. And people are wondering, should they get a shot this year? Will there be a risk of getting flu this year?
So it's really interesting that there really has been essentially no flu in Canada circulating in the population because of all these measures. And now for this year, we don't really know if that's going to continue because, of course, we're opening up again. So there's a chance that flu is going to come into the country and start circulating. And because there has been no flu for the past year, we don't know if that means the flu in general is going to be lower and so less likely to get flu, or if our immunity has been, as a population, has decreased, so there's more likely to get flu. So it's actually really difficult to know or to predict what the flu season is going to look like. Having said that, it is a really good idea to get the flu shot because if it does happen to be a bad flu year, then you are more protected. The other reason we want people to be protected from the flu is because there's already enough people in hospital with COVID. And if we add people who are really sick from the flu to that number of people in the hospital, we can really overwhelm the system more. So it's better that we, just avoid the hospital altogether.
Is there a risk that because there's been less flu around and maybe our natural immunity's gone down, that we could have a worse year this year than past years?
Yeah, actually there could be, and we're calling that the potential for a twin-demic. And that's where we get both high levels of flu and high levels of COVID. And again, what will happen is that we'll get more people in the hospital who are really sick from both of these. And we don't know what the consequence would be if someone was infected with both, for example. But you can just imagine that that would be very hard for a person to recover from two viral illnesses.
Okay. And this year, of course, there are still people getting shots for COVID. And some people are concerned that they should not get a COVID shot at the same time as a flu shot. Is there any problem with that?
So immunologically speaking, there's no problem with that. But we do want people to space out their vaccines. In case you get a reaction to one of the vaccines, then you know that it's to that vaccine. And you can, do different things next time, maybe not get that particular shot. So it's important to space them out just because of potential risk of side effects.
And I've heard people say, they got a flu shot but got the flu anyway, and for them that means the flu shot doesn't work. What do you say to them?
So you cannot get the flu from the flu shot. It is actually impossible. There is no alive virus in the flu shot that we get. There's only pieces of the virus, and those pieces are enough to induce an immune response. So, get your antibodies levels up, but there's no actual way that that piece of the flu can cause the flu. So why do people think that they get the flu because of the flu shot? I think it has a lot to do with our bias when we remember past events. So we remember getting the flu shot that year and we remember getting the flu, so we put those things together. But in a year that you didn't get the flu shot, maybe you wouldn't really remember that you got sick. And often what we call the flu isn't influenza, it could be any type of virus that we just feel bad.
And is it also possible that there was a bad match in the flu shot that year? They got a strain, they were exposed to a strain that flu shot didn't protect them against?
Yeah, so just like the COVID vaccine, the flu shots aren't perfect. So there are breakthrough infections that happen. So it could certainly be that there was a lot of flu around that year and you just didn't have the protection that you would have liked to have had. So it's possible to get the flu, it's just never from the flu shot itself.
And I've heard people say that they're concerned that if they get a flu shot, they may be more susceptible to COVID. Is there anything to that?
I can't imagine any reason that you would be more vulnerable to a viral infection because you got a vaccination for a different virus. Your immune system is an amazing thing. It's got so much capacity, way more capacity than one vaccine could ever even come close to reaching. And so even if you are generating that immune response to the vaccine, you still have so much capacity to actually protect yourself against a real viral infection.
I've also heard people say that they expect we're going to get a booster for COVID, and they think they should wait to get their flu shot. Does that make any sense?
So boosters are really interesting, and they're going to be extremely helpful for people who've gotten the COVID vaccine quite a while ago, a year ago. And for people whose immune systems aren't very strong, so people who are immunocompromised, some elderly people, those are the people who are going to need the booster shot. For the rest of the population, I think a booster shot should be a while in the future, and because it's a while in the future, you should definitely get your flu shot now so that it doesn't interfere when it comes to time to get a booster shot. Because again, we want to keep that 2 weeks just for side effects, to look for side effects.
My last question, I want to sort of look to the future. There's been talk over the years of someday having a universal flu shot, one that would protect you against every strain of the flu. And when I last heard about it, they said it's still years away. Are we any closer to getting there?
Yeah, I think we're still years away from that. The flu is really a complicated virus because it changes so much. Okay, so we need a new flu shot every year because the flu changes. And so to get a universal vaccine, we need to identify the thing in the flu that doesn't change, one, and two, that your immune system can see. And so that's a huge challenge, which is why it's taken so long to get here. With the advent of mRNA vaccines, maybe this is something that might be closer than it used to be, but I think we're still a ways away.
Well, I'll end it there. Thank you so much for speaking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Here Now. Leela Evans says it was a long time coming. As we reported earlier on the show, the MHA for Torngat Mountains is leaving the PC party and is now going to sit as an independent. She says she feels unhappy and discouraged with the PCs, that her district has been cheated by decades of poor infrastructure and services. Here's more of what she had to say today to reporters.
We trusted government to be fair to us. And you know something, in government, there's no fairness. There's no justice. It's really who can navigate the strongest. And right now, I can't be a part of the PC party. I have to stand as an independent to try and bring that forward. And I'm going to do it the best way I can. And if I fail, I know that at least I tried my best, right? That's so important to me.
Why was it impossible to do that and represent your district within the PC party?
Well, they have a different agenda, and they are a big party that has a long history. And if you look at the history of government that I'm talking about that's failed my people, that's failed the Inuit and the Innu of Labrador, has been the Liberal Party and the PC parties. And for me, the writing was starting to appear, it's kind of like that magic invisible ink, and then you shine a light or you heat it up, and then, the letters start to form. Over the 2 years, I started to see the writing, and I need to make sure that I'm true to what I promised to people, right? When I ran, I was really naive. In 2019, I thought if I could get elected, I could somehow actually show the province what's happened since this Liberal government has removed something as simple as a freight boat that brought food to the North Coast. Something as simple as that. The hardship it's creating basically for the cost of food, for the cost of building materials, for everything. And people are listening to me. You've already heard this before. Out there watching the news, you heard me say that. My party has heard me say that. And I expect support. I expect something to be done to help change this, and I'm not getting it. So I actually have to remove myself, and I have to actually stand and try to educate the population. And I'm hoping that people are going to support me. I hope, in the spirit of true reconciliation, that the people are going to actually support me, and they're going to listen to what I'm saying. And like with me, is I have to be so careful all the time to always speak the truth. If I make one mistake, that's going to be used against me to discredit me, and behind me is all my people that's really wanting something to be done, right? You cannot change the cycles of intergenerational trauma. If families cannot continue to heat their houses, if they can't continue to put food on the table, if somebody is actually dealing with CSSD and is working on getting their children back, these are very, very important things. And I got to look at who I am too. I'm the face of the Innu and the Inuit of Labrador, right? My grandmother is an Inuk who spoke Inuktitut since she was born. She learned English when she went to school. I'm the face of that. I'm a woman. I'm the face of that. I worked in non-traditional jobs all my life. I'm the face of women out there. I am the face also of the gay and the queer. I've self-identified. My parents supported me from a very young age. I was never, ever closeted. I never had a lot of the issues that my friends grew up facing who were gay or who were identified as queer. So with me, I got to be very, very careful to make sure that I'm associating and representing who I am, and I'm true to myself. So with me, right now, that's being independent. And I'm hoping that the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are going to support me.
Moderna says a low dose of its COVID-19 vaccine is safe and appears to be effective for kids 6 to 11 years old. Moderna is the latest vaccine maker to propose a shot for children under 12. The study involved more than 4,700 children who were given 2 shots a month apart. Each contained half of the dose meant for adults. Early results showed that those kids developed similar levels of virus-fighting antibodies as young adults receiving full-strength shots. The number of participants is considered too small to look for potential side effects.
The poppy season has arrived. The Royal Canadian Legion launched this year's Remembrance campaign at Rideau Hall today.
Your Excellency, I present to you with the first copy of the 2021 National Poppy Campaign.
Governor General Mary May Simon received the first official poppy. This marks the 100th year of the poppy as a symbol of remembrance. It was originally inspired by John McCrae's poem In Flanders Field. The Legion says close to $20 million is usually donated during the days leading up to November the 11th, and that money goes directly to initiatives that support veterans. Well, if you've rented a vehicle, you've probably been told about the convenience of returning it after hours. Well, this next story might make you think twice about dropping off those keys and just walking away. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
Samuel Wardlaw rented a cube van from this Enterprise location last May. He just needed it for a few hours to move, returned it after hours, and dropped off the keys as instructed.
I thought I would be done at the time the truck was returned and the keys were put through the slot, but that turned out not to be the case.
A week later, the car rental giant sent Wardlaw an unexpected email telling him the truck was damaged after he left it on the lot and that he was on the hook.
To see over $3,300 in damage, I was totally shocked.
Enterprise said a thief had stolen part of the exhaust system, like this one, the catalytic converter, full of precious metals valuable on the black market.
As per our company policy,
the car rental company pointed to a clause in its lengthy terms and conditions saying if a vehicle is returned during non-business hours, any damage, loss, or theft is the renter's responsibility.
It's their truck, it's their catalytic converter, and it's their lot. The fact that I rented it is somewhat incidental.
Companies need to be upfront if they want an unexpected clause in a contract to be enforceable.
If a company wants to put something in a contract that imposes a heavy burden on a consumer, it's incumbent upon them to bring that to the consumer's attention.
When Go Public contacted Enterprise, it insisted customers drop off vehicles after hours at their own risk. But it did drop its claim against Wardlaw with no explanation and apologized to its customer for confusion. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Actually, I've heard a lot of people grumbling about the cold temperatures that have returned. Is there any hope for later in the week that maybe they'll go bye-bye again?
It depends on where you are, actually, because we've got a ridge of high pressure that's in play, and with the sunshine, the temperatures may bump up a little bit. But let's get into those details pretty quickly here. Ridge of high pressure, and that's the one I'm talking about, that is going to dominate the weather for the most part for the majority of the week. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's actually going to keep an area of low pressure well south of Newfoundland at this point through Wednesday and even into Thursday. However, we've got that clockwise rotation, that onshore flow, which will likely keep things gray for the most part, potential for some drizzle as well, but overall unsettled. The closer you get to the center of the ridge of high pressure, the nicer the weather. So it looks like the best weather will be found this week through most of Labrador, and then we'll start to get into some of that nicer weather the further into the week we go as that ridge of high pressure sinks further south as well, bringing some nicer weather towards the west coast as we get into Thursday and Friday. However, again, that clockwise rotation will keep that onshore flow for most of the northeast coast and that gray sky. We may see some peaks of sun, but overall that's the story this week. So temperatures will be generally sitting in the single digits, 5 degrees for Lab City, similar pretty much across the board, 8 degrees in Nain, and then a pretty similar forecast for most of the island. However, again, a little bit more cloud cover the further towards the west coast. Away from that onshore flow, you'll likely see a few peaks of sun, or at least mainly cloudy periods through the day. And then the further east you go, generally going to see those gray skies. So keeping 6 degrees and cloudy for St. John's. Pretty much the same story on Thursday, except we're going to start to get into the chance of some drizzle and or showers through the afternoon. Temperatures will be hovering in and around 5 degrees. Dipping into the double digits for Port aux Basques by Thursday, and then temperatures up across Labrador warming. 11 degrees for Nain on Thursday, it looks like at this point. The 5-day forecast, unfortunately, for eastern areas of the island, not looking too nice. Single-digit temperatures along with those gray skies. By the time we get into Saturday, looks like things will start to improve. About 9 degrees and a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday. For central Newfoundland, you'll see that happen a little bit earlier, about Friday and or Saturday. The weekend looks gorgeous at this point, 8 to 11 degrees. Similar for western Newfoundland, temperatures a bit warmer there, 12 degrees by the time you get into Saturday. Nice fall weekend so far. For eastern Labrador, lots of sunshine, a little bit more cloudy periods so as you get towards the weekend, but look at what happens to your temperatures back up to the double digits. Then for western Labrador, single-digit highs during the day. However, overnight lows, because of those clear skies, are going to be fairly chilly, about -2 to -4. So I had to share this photo, Topsail Beach sunset. Thank you to Tina for that.
Beautiful.
Lovely shot. If you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
And I guess you're going to be keeping an eye on the weather forecast for the weekend, because of course it is trick-or-treating.
It is. Wow, we're already at the
We are already almost at the end of October.
Completely forgot about that. Yes, I will.
So clearly you do not have a costume picked out for this year.
I do not have a costume picked out for this year. I better get on that.
Yeah.
I'm still working on mine, so any ideas, just put them on Twitter, see what we can work with.
Yeah, that's
Anthony,
a good idea.
do you really want to invite people to suggest
I want to see what they're going to say
what you should dress up as? I will be curious to see what they come up with.
Okay. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good night.
Good night.